Good evening, and this is a special report about the upcoming elections for Senate in Georgia. I wanted to give our viewers some idea of who the opponents are on one of the races. That's Ossoff and Perdue, and so you have a clear picture of both candidates. So let's start with the facts of the elections, the recent elections. So basically, on November 3rd, the Senate seat was not completely won because the winner, David Perdue, did not receive 50% or more of the vote. So that means that the whole election goes into a runoff election, and it is going to be determined in January. As you can see, the difference between the two candidates is not very big. It's a couple of percentage points, and that is after a long period of time where Ossoff was gradually closing in on the gap. If that tendency continues, if that trend continues, Ossoff may win the elections in January. Again, the elections are January 5th, and that's for both seats. For the seat that Ossoff is running for against Perdue, and the one that Warnock is running against Loeffler. Basically, why is that? Why are those seats so important? You can see that the Senate after the last elections is divided. You have 50 Republicans and you have 46 Democrats at the moment. If those two senators win, they will close in to 48 versus 50. There are a couple of independents that caucus with Democrats, meaning they usually vote alongside with Democrats. So if that happens, you would have a 50-50 distribution of the Senate if both Senates go to Democrats. And in that case, the tiebreaker would be the vice president. So you can see how important that is from the perspective of Democrats not having to rely on Republicans, and with the bitter history of McConnell blocking any legislation during the Obama era, I don't see much reason to think that he would not do the same. We would end up having a very difficult period where everything would stagnate, and the attempt would be to overthrow the Democrats in the upcoming elections on basis of inaction. So what do we know about Jon Ossoff? Well, he hasn't really been he has not been elected so far. He has run previously for the 6th district congressional district in Georgia, but he has lost that race. All we know is about his previous occupations and general information. So basically, we know that he has grown up in Atlanta. Is a native of Atlanta, Georgia, and as a teen he's worked for the Representative John Lewis, which affected him very greatly. He finished a Bachelor of Science degree in Georgetown and a master's degree in London School of Economics. He's he was a managing director and investigative journalist for Insight TWI, which was a London-based production company focused on exposures of corruption around the world. And he's done a documentary for them. He's worked for them for a while. He's also worked as a national security staffer and aide to Representative Hank Johnson, and he had security clearance for about half a year. In 2017, he ran for the 6th Congressional District in Georgia, and he lost for 4 percentage points to Handel, even though he outspent her. So this is what we know in terms of his general information. Now, I wanted to give you an idea of what are the policies or positions that he has expressed, since we don't have policies that he's done up to now. So basically, here's a quick round that Axios did with him regarding general questions, and you will see why I do not consider him progressive as such.
People want to know what kind of person they're voting for, but I think they also want to know what policies that person supports, what you would do, what you would vote for if you were elected. Let me just do a speed round with you,
okay,
if I can. Do you support the Green New Deal?
No.
Do you support Medicare for all?
No.
Do you support DC statehood?
Yes.
Do you support Puerto Rican statehood?
Yes.
Do you support defunding the police?
No.
Do you support abolishing ICE?
No.
Do you support expanding the Supreme Court?
No.
Do you support ending the filibuster?
Maybe.
Okay, tell me more.
It's not just a question of yes or no filibuster. What I will consider is the implications in the long run when the shoe is on the other foot.
So his opponent has tried to portray him as a socialist. Obviously, he's not. He's far from it. We progressives would consider those to be pretty conservative positions. However, I'll go more in depth into what specifically he is for or is not for. For example, he mentioned that he was not for police for defunding, but he explains that he would require a restructuring of the police. So he's for restructuring, not defunding, meaning he would like to have people that are more designed to work with mental disabilities and mental issues go along with police. He wants to deliver a new civil rights act. He would lobby for that, and he believes that there should be accountability for police and for brutality as part of that better, bigger civil rights act. So let's look at some of the positions that he's described regarding other issues. For example, the environment.
Most Georgians and most Americans want us to save the environment. It's not just climate change. We have mass extinction. It's snowing plastic in the Arctic. Coral reefs are dying. The ice caps are melting. This is a crisis. So whether I'm from Atlanta or Athens or Rome or Columbus, the point is, what am I going to do for the people of Georgia? And I'll be focused on substantive issues that affect our daily lives, the future of our country, and the future of our planet.
Do you think climate change is if you had to rate them, would climate change be your top issue?
Climate change is an existential threat, according to environmental scientists, by overwhelming consensus. Look, science is not infallible, but as policymakers seek to find the truth as a basis for policy making, science is the best thing we have. Peer-reviewed empirical science, reason. And environmental scientists are telling us that climate change is an existential threat, that extinction of species, unlike anything we've seen in human history, is destroying our ecosystem, that plastic waste is clogging our oceans and our very bodies and our air and our water. And most Americans agree that we should save the environment. So why are we not? Why does Congress not act? It's because of corruption embedded deep in our political system. And I've spent the last 6 years as an investigative journalist running a company that has exposed contract killers, corrupt judges, powerful corporations, ISIS war criminals all over the world. I have a proven record fighting corruption internationally. And I believe if we do not now mount an unprecedented campaign to root out corruption in our own country, I don't know if our democracy will survive.
So he clearly understands the problem at hand. He believes in science. He understands that corruption and money in politics is the culprit. And that gives me some hope that he, if not he's against a Green New Deal, but however, I do believe that he sincerely believes in addressing the climate issue, and not only the climate issue, he's actually expanded it and explained that he understood the problem we're having with mass extinction, which is right now not even talked in mainstream politics yet, because we're so even trying to bring the climate change topic onto the table. So that gives me a little hope. I think that's kind of encouraging, even if he's not fully for a Green New Deal. Let's see what he's talking about in terms of police brutality.
Yeah, I think it's so important. I think that there is more recognition broadly across the country right now of how serious a problem police brutality, racial profiling, the inequities in policing, prosecution, sentencing, and incarceration along racial lines and also along class lines. Mm-hmm. And that's why I will champion in the Senate a new Civil Rights Act, mm-hmm. which will hold police departments, prosecutors, and judges across the country to high and uniform standards of civil rights and constitutional rights. Where there is brutality, there must be accountability. Where there is racial bias, there must be accountability. Until people are held accountable, behavior won't change. We need there to be real mechanisms and at the federal level for these grievances to be redressed and to hold local officials, local officers, local judges accountable where they're violating civil rights. Mm.
Well, I couldn't disagree that there is a need for that. I don't know if I would consider that the end all response to police brutality and to racism within the police. I think there's additional things that need to be done on the local level, and also in terms of fund redistribution and so forth. But nevertheless, I mean, he is not running away from the subject, and that's good. As far as marijuana is concerned, that's another topic that is kind of interesting to figure out what he's standing for. Here it is.
Yeah, I'm not just for decriminalization. I'm for outright legalization of cannabis nationally. I think that the prohibition of this substance is irrational. I think that it's, as you pointed out, also a deep injustice that there are people getting wealthy in the legal cannabis industry while other folks are sitting in prison for cannabis-related offenses. I think that whether you smoke or not should be up to you. I don't encourage it, but I don't encourage heavy drinking either. And alcohol is a legal substance. We're responsible for our own health. Right. And the enforcement of the prohibition of cannabis destroys lives. It costs huge amounts of money, and it's unjust. So I'm in favor not just of legalization, but also expunging the records of people who have nonviolent marijuana-related offenses on their records.
As a progressive with libertarian leanings, I kind of agree with that, and I think that a lot of our libertarian viewers would agree with that as well. And I think the time for legalization of cannabis has long overdue. So we'll see if the Senate is even going to be able to reach that point. But that's also a pretty good position as far as I'm concerned. Finally, the COVID crisis. And this is an interesting area because aside from criticizing the this government, what does he stand for? There's a lot of discussion of what's happening to common folks, and he's addressing that here.
Yeah, starting in January, God willing, with Donald Trump out the White House and a new Senate, we're going to have to rebuild. And we are still going to be in the midst of this crisis. It's unlikely we're going to have a vaccine by then. Right. And we're seeing at all levels, the federal level, the state level, a really incompetent response that's not taking the advice of public health experts. It's so political. It's so much short-term thinking. And it's self-destructive for these folks because the people can see that they're not up to it, and that there is so much more suffering and infection and death and unemployment and eviction and foreclosure and bankruptcy than there needs to be. But what I'm about right now is, first of all, getting more direct help to people. Mm-hmm. We have seen trillions of dollars flow overnight virtually to Wall Street investment banks, to some of the largest corporations in America. My opponent, Senator David Perdue, opposed even a single $1,200 stimulus check. Wow. For ordinary people. Wow. I think we need more direct help for ordinary people. I think we need to recognize that the huge race and class disparities in infection and death from this disease reflect deep underlying inequality in our healthcare system that demands that we expand Medicaid, that we understand and recognize that human health is a human right. It's not something that should be reserved just for those who have the resources and the flexibility to get the best insurance on the private market. Right. We need to make sure that people have more options, more choices, that there's a break in the link between health and wealth.
So that is very refreshing to hear. There's definitely compassionate approach there to all the people who are suffering under COVID. He's running against a Republican who is actually voted against the $1,200 check that was eventually dispersed. The contrast couldn't be any wider in this regard. He really would press to help common folk, people who are losing their homes and so far, while Perdue is actively trying to stop that from happening. So who is Perdue? Who do we know anything about Perdue? Well, we do know he's been in office. He's also had a wide public exposure through his businesses. He's a businessman. So let's look at who he is. Well, so he's basically also a native of Macon, Georgia. He was helped into the Air Force Academy by Representative Jack Brinkley, but he dropped out. Then he completed a BA in Georgia Tech. To mention his first cousin is U.S. Secretary of Agriculture Sonny Perdue, and that has a significant we'll touch up on later on in terms of his businesses and his influence. He worked in a managerial position for Sara Lee Corporation, Hager Clothing, Reebok, Pillow Text, and Dollar General. From Reebok on, he used to be in the CEO position. We know that he has then moved to his political campaigning. He ran for Senate in 2014 and he won. So, what do we know about his public actions? We know that Pillow Text after he took the CEO position, stint closed down pretty soon after. About 4,000 jobs were lost, and before doing so, he received a $2 million buyout before leaving the company. What's interesting to note here is that he hasn't shown up at the company almost the entire period of time that he was a CEO, and that caused a very low morale at the workplace, because it seemed like he was giving up on the company. And this is something that repeats itself also in his Senate position, because he has not held any town hall meetings in the period that he's been a senator. We know that he did business with Sonny Perdue, his first cousin, to profit off of a port transloading service which they provided while he was director of the Georgia Port Authority. So there's a conflict of interest there, and that is very unfortunate. But it's not a singular event in his political career, as we will see. In 2014, he paid a penalty for campaign finance violation after accepting hundreds of thousands of dollars in prohibited contributions and donations that exceeded legal limits. So if basically every donation is limited to $2,000, if you go over that, basically they're not allowed to accept your donation, and his campaign has. And he had to pay, I believe, $30,000 back as penalty. In 2017, he used his position on the Senate Banking Committee to try and demolish the protections provided by Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which was restricting the prepaid credit card industry from harming folks that they were holding these type of credit cards. He wasn't able to roll it completely back, but he did affect or narrowed the scope of these restrictions, and he profited from that as well. He invested in a company called First Data at the same time, which was a prepaid credit card company during these attempts to demolish that law, and he has made a bundle on that. In 2014, we know that he paid penalty for the campaign finance reform. I think that we covered that. And also we know that he profited on selling and buying stocks based on inside information while lying to the public about the severity of COVID and what was expected to come. He was privy of discussions in the government, in the administration, about what was to come, and he repeatedly claimed that it was nothing but a flu, even at the point where there were 80,000, I believe it was March or May, in May, 80,000 people passed away from corona, while on average people who die from the flu are about 40,000 a year. So even at that point, the death toll was twice what it was from the flu, and he insisted that it was just nothing but the flu. Meanwhile, he sold all his casino stocks, and he bought 3M or DuPont stocks that were related to mask manufacturing. So he has worried about making a bundle again, profiting himself versus the public good. Other criticism that are launched at him, that he made an attempt to address he didn't make any attempt to address Georgia's greatest maternal mortality. It's the greatest rate in the country, and he has done nothing to address that. He held no town hall for the last 4 years, as we discussed, and he avoided the last debate with Ossoff, he basically canceled out of the debate, not willing to confront him any longer. He insistently tried to reinstate the existing conditions clause into the health insurance policies. In other words, if you remember, prior to Obamacare, if you had a pre-existing condition, you could it would be excluded from any new coverage of healthcare, and he wanted to restore that situation. I believe he repeatedly did it about 4 times. He joined the lawsuit on that, and he's never answered why he has done that. So let's look at the clip here that I think a lot of you may have seen, because it's been an excerpt that received a lot of viewing of a piece of the debate where he confronted Perdue in person.
It's not just that you're a crook, Senator. Well, perhaps Senator Perdue would have been able to respond properly to the COVID-19 pandemic if you hadn't been fending off multiple federal investigations for insider trading. It's not just that you're a crook, Senator. It's that you're attacking the health of the people that you represent. You did say COVID-19 was no deadlier than the flu. You did say there would be no significant uptick in cases. All the while, you were looking after your own assets and your own portfolio, and you did vote 4 times to end protections for pre-existing conditions. 4 times. And the legislation that you tout, the PROTECT Act, it includes loopholes that specifically allow insurance companies to deny policies to Georgians with pre-existing conditions. Can you look down the camera and tell the people of this state why you voted 4 times to allow insurance companies to deny us health coverage because we may suffer from diabetes or heart disease or asthma or have cancer in remission? Why?
Yep, well, that was kind of intense, and the people at the Young Turks titled the look on Perdue's face as colonoscopy face. Very uncomfortable minute, but he's really not responded to this. He repeatedly in all of the debates, he gaslights, he throws questions that are ridiculous because he's projecting things that he's mostly guilty of onto Ossoff. For example, he keeps asking him if he received PAC money, where Ossoff received a tiny amount of PAC money equivalent to 1% of his campaign, while he has received like close to 50%. And it is continually just trying to sling mud instead of defending his positions, and that's become very apparent to anyone who's like objectively looking at what he's been doing. He's been throwing those commercials. All the campaign ads are basically at this point against Ossoff, just trying to scare people and portray him as a socialist and some sort of extremist, and really not answer any of the issues that are important to Georgians. So the next thing I wanted to just quickly go over the campaign finance, because as you know, the saying is follow the money, and basically that tells you a lot about someone. Who is he getting the money from? Because he owes a favor to whoever donates the most amount of money. So that goes to both candidates, of course. If we look at Ossoff, for example, we see that he received nearly 40% in small donations, small individual contributions. He received about 55% from individuals, large contributions, which to us progressives is not a great sign. However, he's received only 1% in PAC money, and that's from a PAC that was a political PAC. And in terms of candidate self-financing, he threw in about 0.8% himself. In other, we just don't know, about 3.65%. In terms of the disclosure, he was pretty decent, 99.80% fully disclosed. So that's pretty decent in terms of that. Perdue, in comparison, is received only about 10% in small individual contributions. He received nearly 50% in large individual contributions, so similar to what Ossoff gained. And PAC contribution, sorry, I said before it was 50%, it's 15%, about close to 16% was PAC contribution compared to the 1% of Ossoff's. Candidate self-financing is nil. He's a rich guy, but he did not donate to his own campaign. Why should he? He has a lot of other sources. This guy owns and lives on a private island, just so you know. In terms of the disclosure, his disclosure is 86%. So we may not know what the rest, how accurate this is. It's not complete, but this is as far as we'll get. In terms of the business, we can see that Perdue received most of the business donations by a lot. And in terms of labor, there was a little bit, but that Ossoff got, but ideological, there's a big difference between the ideological contributions that Perdue got and Ossoff. And here you can see the donors. So for Perdue, you have the agribusiness, and that goes back to Sony Perdue. Of course, you pay for access, and the fact that he's related to the Secretary of Agriculture is, I'm sure, not lost on donors. You have communication and electronics, which is a big part for Ossoff. Actually, Ossoff got the majority of communication and electronic companies. Construction, you have again twice or three times as much on the side of Perdue as opposed to Ossoff. Defense, again Perdue. Energy and national resources, by a landslide, Perdue leads that. And financial institutions and real estate, again Perdue tops all of Ossoff's contribution in that industry. Health, we can see that actually Ossoff got a little more, and that's partly because he supports the Health Affordability Act. He supports Obamacare, or some version of its expansion. Lawyers and lobbyists, Ossoff got most of them. Transportation, Perdue. And you can see the rest of them. Ideological single issues, by far Ossoff took. So that gives you some idea of where the money comes from and who these people are accountable for. Again, the industries that supported Jon Ossoff, all the industries that supported above 500, about 500,000 are here, and you can see that the part of it is from the party. A lot of retired people, education, lawyers, security and investment, human rights, health professionals, and the internet. Perdue, on the other hand, his top donors were retired, real estate, security and investment again, Republican conservatives, that's the party, insurance, the insurance industry, leadership PACs, again PACs, lawyers and law firms, and miscellaneous finance industry contributors. Well, so basically, what's the conclusion here? And basically, we can definitely conclude that Perdue has done a lot to enrich himself. What he has done for the state is questionable. I'm not sure if many can point to anything that he's advanced in Georgia during his period of time, but it's definitely clear that he's made a fortune during that time. While for progressives, Ossoff is not a progressive, his main positions are ingestible by progressives. In other words, I think if I was in Congress, I could work with that. I think it's possible to work around these positions. They're not far off, and they're not bought off. So he basically very much mirrors Biden's points of view. And that is important because if we expect anything to happen in the upcoming administration, the Senate has to approve whatever the president does. And I think that he would be very much on board with moving things along. Whether it would be completely what we would like as progressives, I'm not sure. But I think it would go at least partially to that end. And if you were to compare that with what would happen if Perdue won, or if both seats were not turned into Democratic, that would be a problem. So I think the conclusion is that it's definitely probably advisable for people, progressives or even non-progressives, libertarian, whoever, to vote for Ossoff in the upcoming elections in January 5th. So thank you, Pat. I try to give as much information for people who need to make up their mind. And if you want to contribute, I will post the link in the description. There's Act Blue contribution sites and others that I'm sure you've been contacted as well to contribute to these two races. Next week I will be covering the Warnock versus Loeffler race, which is also a very interesting one. Again, we're talking about a really corrupt Republican candidate and their a person that's running against him, and I'll discuss who those people are. Okay, if you guys have any other additional questions, you can post them now. Otherwise, we'll wrap it up. Okay, well, I'm happy this broadcast this streaming has gone without a hitch, as far as I can tell. We've had some issues with getting the stream on in the no joke segment on Saturday. The last couple of weeks we've worked on that. Hopefully that's not going to reoccur, and I hope you guys will join us on Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time to review this week and see what's going on. Okay, guys, thanks, and see you soon.